Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and a warm welcome to the second Women Plus Water lecture for 2024. I want to begin by acknowledging that all of us participate today from the traditional territories of First Peoples across the country and around the world. So those of us in Saskatoon, like I am, are gathering here today from Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. The University of Saskatchewan is committed to honoring and supporting the Indigenous peoples, the Indigenous cultures, Indigenous values, and Indigenous languages that belong to the land. Water is the lifeblood of people and societies, all connecting us. We pay respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of the Saskatoon region and reaffirm our relationship with one another and with the land and waters that are essential to our health and well-being. I invite those of you joining from other territories today to reflect on and recognize the lands and waters you call home and set an intention to have a productive and positive discussion today. I am Stacy Demansky. I'm an outreach specialist at the Global Institute for Water Security and the Global Water Futures program at the University of Saskatchewan. Today is an exciting Women Plus Water conversation on water as a key ingredient for women and girls' nutrition. This lecture is in honor of the United Nations International Day for Women and Girls in Science on the theme of Women in Science Leadership, an Era for Sustainability. This day is a reminder that women and girls play a critical role in science and technology communities and that their participation should be strengthened. Us here at Women Plus Water are approaching our 1-year anniversary of the official launch of the Women Plus Water expert list. So the expert list was launched by Corin Schuster Wallace and Andrea Rowe, who we are privileged to have join us today. And this was launched at the United Nations General Assembly in New York on February 10th of 2023. So since this launch, we're excited that over 140 individuals from around the world have joined this public-facing list that's designed to connect you with people and opportunities, and to share your research and experience on gender and all areas of water on your terms and in spaces that are meaningful to you. So we are very thankful to Andrea, who has been instrumental in getting this Women Plus Water expert list designed and launched, and providing a tool for the international water community to increase that visibility of people currently underrepresented in water. So thank you very much, Andrea, for joining us today. We appreciate having you here.
Thank you. It's a wonderful list, and I hope that others will join. And at the 1-year anniversary, I have added myself as one of the experts. So thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you, Corin and Stacy, and I look forward to the lecture.
Thank you so much. So as well, you guys, if anybody who is interested in being on that expert list, we do invite you to head to our website to register and self-nominate yourself. So a link will be put in the chat. So without further ado, I do want to thank you all for joining us today and joining this conversation all about food security and that role that water plays in the sustainability goal. To highlight some of the logistics for today's event, you are able to listen in French by clicking on that globe-shaped interpretation button in the toolbar and choosing French. So thank you, Claudine, for providing that service. The event will be about 1 hour in length and being recorded in both English and French, and recordings for those will be available on our website in the coming weeks. The event is also captioned live, so thank you, Ella. If you would like to access the captions, click that CC button in the toolbar and English captions are visible. In the last 10 minutes of today's event, there'll be opportunities for you to ask questions for our guests today. So please use that Q&A function to submit your questions, and we'll draw upon those today at the end of the conversation. And lastly, today we invite any students and early career individuals that are attending today's conversation to stay on after it concludes to have a bit of a more intimate, open discussion with the esteemed guests that are here today. We extend our absolute gratitude for our guests to volunteer their time to do this and engage with the students in early careers. So thank you. All right, so I will provide you all with a bit of a brief introduction to our speakers today. If you want to learn more about them, their full biographies are on our website, so you can click there in the chat. Thank you, Jesse. First up, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Eunice Salubi. She is a postdoctoral researcher at the Department of Geography and Planning at the University of Saskatchewan. Her research interests include analyzing impacts of climate change on water quality and water-related diseases, the spatial patterns of diseases, and understanding social and environmental determinants influencing those patterns. So welcome, Eunice, and thanks for joining us today as our host.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Professor Gordon Zello. So Gordon is a professor of nutrition in the College of Pharmacy and Nutrition at the University of Saskatchewan. His fields of specialization are intermediary metabolism and nutritional assessment. Professor Zello's international work includes nutrition and food security, and he's involved in One Health initiatives in Africa, Bangladesh, and Brazil. So welcome, Gordon. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure being here.
And lastly for today is we have Melissa Ho. She is the Senior Vice President for Freshwater and Food at the World Wildlife Fund US. She leads an integrated team working on place-based and market-based initiatives that aim to protect freshwater resources, conserve critical landscapes, and strengthen regenerative, resilient food systems. With over 20 years of experience, Melissa takes a systems approach to address the two biggest threats to nature and climate. Those are agriculture and infrastructure. So welcome, Melissa. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
And unfortunately, our other guest for today, Professor Allison Blay Palmer, had a family issue that she needed to attend to. So we just want to recognize Allison's contribution to today's conversation and all the events that led up to today. So we thank Professor Blay Palmer for her time, and all our well wishes we're sending them to her and her family. All right, so at this time, I'm going to pass this off to Eunice to take on and introduce herself and take on hosting the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy, and a warm welcome to you all. I'm Eunice Salubi, a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Saskatchewan. And I'll be presenting my work based on some reviews that I have done. So I'll just share my screen. Do let me know if you see. All right, do you see my screen?
Yep, you're good. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So this work is based on some reviews that we have done. And I just have about less than 5 minutes to do this. So this is on water quality and food security. And talking of food-water relationships, water and food are interrelated and have been seen interconnections between water and food in the literature. And this can also be seen in the causative organisms that even lead to food-related illnesses. They are also primarily water-related, such as Salmonella and E. coli. And these are all affiliated with water. And there are also links between climatic factors, water quality, and food-related illnesses that are also being explored. And we're going to look at some of that. And so here we have some of the factors influencing food security. We have agricultural practices, large animals, wildlife, human behavioral, climate change. And all these are also interrelated, and they also affect or they influence water quality and also food security. So for agricultural practices, we have seen more on irrigation practices where those the irrigation waters get mixed with manures from cow pats, and there are now indirect impacts on the crops that are being harvested. And so you get the transmission taking place in humans to humans. And then also for large animals, wildlife, that's more in rural settings, where you have also cow pats too for those animals being used as manure, being applied on the heaps and the fields. And some of these contain coliforms, and pathogens that can be potentially transferred as well to the irrigation trenches, used to also water the plants. And then we have the human behavior that has to do with human lifestyle, ways by which humans handle safe or unsafe practices, food practices basically. And also the sources of food purchase. The conditions there also have strong direct or indirect impacts on health and food security. And then lastly, to climate change. This is also an area that is also drawing attention in the literature, and you have high intensity precipitation being associated with a significant increase of pathogens in commercial shellfish harvest zones, that's here in Canada, and also in the harvest of leafy greens in some temperate regions. And so we also have water extreme events like flood and droughts, also having drastic effects also in terms of quality and quantity of food. And also, there are now models being developed to be able to generate and establish some of these processes that we have concerning food security. And in terms of this, models being developed are like mathematical models that are being developed to determine processes associated with the source of contamination, the fate and transport of those pathogens, and then how it leads to exposure in humans. And so these processes are being modeled to be able to generate what-if scenarios and be able to make projections. And for further details, here's my contact information. And so to move on to our guests so that we can hear from them, I'll start off with Gordon. And my first question for Gordon is that from your own work and experience on food security, and also, of course, in relation to water, so how do you view that? What has been your own experience so far in terms of food security, water, the relationship with water? Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Eunice. Your slides were actually just perfect for an introduction to the kind of work I do with regards to food security. But before I start talking a little bit about that, I just wanted to thank Stacy and Corinne for the invitation. I do feel like a bit of a fish out of water. First of all, I'm a man. And second of all, I don't do water research per se or food system work. So my background, as mentioned, is really in working with the most vulnerable in emerging countries, so with women and children. And my nutrition background, specifically first in bench protein work and then in nutritional assessment of things like dietary intake, body composition work, and a later opportunity in my career to be able to actually do some international work. And this started with an invitation from the College of Ag and Bio here at the U of S to bring nutrition into their crop and soil science research that they were doing in Ethiopia. And really that began a relationship with food security. And my thoughts, not being a water researcher in the last few weeks, thinking about this presentation, really started to change my thoughts about where water interplays in all the activities of the research that I've done in these developing and emerging countries, and how important it is. And again, Eunice, your slide showing the food security and the aspects of how food security is involved in climate, human behavior, and all of that really fits into a lot of the work I've been doing. So to your question very briefly, water plays such an important role in food preparation, in soil management, in crop development, and crop yields. And all of these things I started to put together, and it really shows that water is a key ingredient. And I love the word used, ingredient, because it reminds me of food. I often think of it as basic scientists think of it as an essential nutrient, which it also is. And how we, at least in the teaching I do with my students, I really don't really focus on that aspect. And I think I'm really going to start doing that and show how water really is important in our lives and in other people's lives when it comes to food security. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for those highlights there, drawing attention on climate and health as well. Yeah, in addition to what you do, even though it's not fully water, but thank you for that, emphasizing that interconnection. And also, Melissa, I'll pass it on to you. From your own experience, so how do you view food security and the role that water plays in it?
Hi, thank you. And I also extend my greetings and thanks to the organizers and excitement for your Women in Water Experts list. And I'm hoping we can grow that list to thousands, if not tens of thousands of women water experts around the world. So that's an exciting list to have as a resource. Let me just start briefly with WWF's perspective in this, and then I'll definitely move into the food and water connection. So I work with the World Wildlife Fund U.S. office based in Washington, D.C., and I lead and support a freshwater and food team. So integrating these concepts in our daily work. But our goal, right, we are the world's largest conservation organization. We really envision a world where people and nature thrive, which is increasingly more difficult when we know climate change has arrived and climate acts through water. So there's increasing challenges in thinking about addressing freshwater conservation. But in addition to water as food, which has been the source, of my career and the intersection of water and food for more than 25 years, we really view water as life. Water underpins all of life that we care about, whether it's wildlife, life in nature, ecosystems, but human life and development needs. That includes, as you were noting, Eunice, health, but food, energy, drinking water, all of it. It is so fundamental to all of our goals. And so I think, you gave some really wonderful statistics. I think the one I will just add for this conversation is that uh, 70 to 80%, and some places more, of global freshwater resources goes towards agricultural production. And so that's where, that's a lot. And then it's also, agriculture is a really large source and driver of degradation of freshwater resources, not just the consumption of it, but runoff and inputs and chemicals and things getting into our water degrade the quality as well. And so thinking of that interplay, we need water to make food, but yet food production is affecting our ability to have a sustained water use. These things, kind of go together. And so I think, as you noted, there's a lot we are working on in terms of the why at WWF. Agriculture and infrastructure, as was noted in my bio, are really the two major drivers of nature degradation, which is why our organization works on them. And at the same time, they are hugely impacted as nature is degraded and as water, as these world events are happening. Freshwater biodiversity is the most at risk of all biodiversity. Nature is in crisis, just as we were saying, there's a climate crisis. And as you can imagine, they're inextricably linked, and climate is accelerating our nature loss. And so our ability, these things are impacting our water cycle and our food production sustainability, like the ability of having future food production. So we really look at the interplay of conservation and development needs and think of them not as competing or one versus the other, but that they are one and the same goals, two sides of the same coin, and what and why we work on these things. And I know this panel especially is focusing on the role and importance of girls and women. And I think I'll just say on that, and I know we're going to open up the discussion around this, is that, we still have almost 2 billion people in the world who don't have basic access to clean drinking water in their own homes. And we know that the majority of the burden of collection of that water for basic sustenance and living falls on women and girls to go get it, which has so many implications for safety, for their own well-being, let alone there's just, some basic water, sanitation, and hygiene issues as a result of that lack of access. And we also know that there are so many women and girls implicated in household food security and growing a lot of the food and the interplay with agriculture. So I look forward to opening up the discussion on how these issues are playing out globally and in specific communities and places. The details do matter, not just the global numbers. And then I really also look forward to thinking specifically about the implications and what and how we can change the situation for women and girls. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I like the part of, the part that you emphasize and also the gender aspects, and I also delve a little bit more into that. And I'd like to pass it over to Gordon again. And I will want to find what challenges that impact sustainable food security in terms of, say, health and climate change, as you have highlighted earlier. So if you can elaborate on that. Thanks.
Sure, I'll focus on my experiences. I don't think, I don't have that experience in Canada with our Indigenous populations, but I think a lot of what transcends my experiences will also fit with those that we see even in our developed world. So when it comes to sustainable food security, it is really an integration of a lot of factors, as you pointed out, Eunice. The environment, climate change will certainly play a role. In emerging countries, you can see this with in Bangladesh, rising water levels, causing problems with regards to available food at right times. There, I did work with adolescent girls, which again are the most vulnerable population in that they get fed last. So if there's not a lot of food, they're going to be the ones that aren't going to be fed. And they're the ones also doing the hard work, the labor. They're also the ones that are going to be having children very early in life. So, those struggles exist in most of the places I've worked. And when we moved to Ethiopia, and again, I've worked in both northern Ethiopia, which is still, I would say, under civil war. It's ended, but there are now problems again with drought that have arisen, where again, you see a very different climate than you would see in a different geography than you would see in southern Ethiopia. So northern Ethiopia is very dry and mountainous. So agriculture is basically terraced, so where you would have plants growing on the side of mountains and hills. And so the types of crops that could be grown there are few. They tend to be, hopefully still, pulse kind of crops. So the things like chickpeas, which are fairly drought tolerant and have short growing seasons. So that's a positive, that they can grow a highly nutritious product. However, when you see distribution of that product, it doesn't necessarily get eaten by the population. It's also considered these kinds of high value cash crops are often sold by the males of the family in the markets and not consumed by the families. So even though traditional diets include things, a very diet diverse diet, we see these populations moving away from their traditional diets to more diets of less diversity, mainly grains. And if you know about protein quality, you need both grain, and if you're basically a plant-based society, you basically need both grains and legumes, pulses, to get a complete protein. So even though we talk often about hidden hunger, which is the deficiencies or inadequacies of micronutrients, there is still a very severe protein energy malnutrition, energy due to droughts and scarcity of food, but protein malnutrition due to just poor quality proteins in the diet. So what we've worked at is trying to get farmers, working with model women farmers, to grow pulses, but also maintain some of that pulse back, which what we call complementary foods, and include the pulse powders into the grain products. So making a powder or that could be used to make bread that contains the high quality protein. Maybe an interesting water story to that is, you may or may not know that a lot of plant crops contain anti-nutrients, and specifically in pulse crops, they would be things like phytates. So these prevent minerals from being absorbed into the body. And one easy way to inactivate those phytates is to germinate the seed, and then dry it, and then powder it. And when we were working with the women, we asked them, we were explaining to them if they would just germinate the seed, that would help with the nutritional quality of the seed, and they were very resistant to that. And it was surprising that the resistance is that to germinate, they would need to use water. And water was so precious to them that germinating the actual seed in water would mean that they wouldn't have the water for other purposes. So we worked with them, and through conversations, it was evident that they could still use that water after germination. They can use it for cooking and things like that. It's a good starch and such too. But it was just that realization that these small little things where water plays a significant role is so key in this food security aspect, because not like for food security, you need to have good, high quality foods as well. And this is one way we could do that. So I've talked a lot, I've given you one example, talked a lot about that, but I'll let Melissa also speak to this. I could speak a long time about different examples that I've had, but that's one I think was quite an experience for me.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially on the pulse planting there, being very drought resistant. I think that's something that other communities too will be looking towards, especially when drought is becoming a thing of concern, even here in Western Canada. So, all right, thank you. So let's hear also from let's hear from Melissa about some of the challenges that impact the sustainable food security in terms of gender, health, and then agriculture. Yeah.
Great. Your story, Gordon, is really telling to, I have a graphic that I'm not going to show, but the idea that we think water is this renewable resource that's so abundant. We think of our planet as the blue planet because it's covered in water. But if we really drill down, and there's an amazing NASA graphic that shows the planet, and then this tiny drop by volume of the amount of water that's actually sweet water or fresh water that we can drink. And then you drill down even more to barely a speck, the fresh water that's actually accessible. And that is in groundwater and surface water that we think of as streams and rivers. Most of the water we see is salt water and not not really usable for humans. And while we have a hydrologic cycle that recycles it, it is possible to use it as a non-renewable resources because we are consuming and wasting more than what the cycle is putting back. And so I think the other piece, so it's a finite and precious resource, but we always don't take, we often take it for granted and we don't always remember that. And your story really captured the preciousness of water in that community. And I wish that we had that ethos around the world in every community. So that was one point I just wanted to pick up on your story. And there's a lot of data and stats I could show that relate to this. And I think the other piece that I'll just for the audience, and then I'll drill down into my example, is that, that it's less than, a percent. It's like less than a percent. It's like 2% that's all sweet water, and then really less than a percent that's accessible. And most of that is actually groundwater stored and invisible. And yes, we do have ponds and surfaces of rivers and things like that. But the groundwater is more than 30 times the amount of our fresh surface water. So that I just want people to imagine too, that, wow, we've got these different stores, but those vast, imagine the lake or freshwater body that you love as a kid, or even now as an adult that you stand next to. Maybe it's in Canada. You have amazing, we share Great Lake systems together. And there's, you have some of the largest freshwater stores in the world in Canada. But those are pretty minuscule, and we see them drying up. We see there's less than a third of the world's rivers that are free flowing and unfettered. We see many of them, like in the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo here in the US, that are drying up in large stretches because of overuse of it and are pulling it. And then the idea that groundwater stores, wow, that's another amazing bank account for us to draw on. We are over allocated on that bank account around the world too, and mostly from borrowed agricultural production. So some of the bread baskets of the world, including in the US, the Ogallala, the Rio Grande, you have to imagine these systems are connected underground and above ground. China, the Ganges Plain in India, many of these places are reliant on groundwater stores, and we can overdraw a bank account of that too. And sometimes it's harder to know the impact because it's not a seen resource. And yet we are seeing implications happening around the world: saltwater intrusion, land subsidence, all sorts of different things happening when we overtake more than what's being restored. So I just wanted to mention those two things. And then the story I'll give, I have a couple, I have several as well, but I'll just give one. I was going to pick an Ethiopia story, but since you did, I'll pick one that I had from when I was a program officer working on ag and water in rural India. And we were trying to roll out and support more ag production and livelihoods abilities for the communities and for smallholders, especially where women farmers were part of it. But it was through the use of drip irrigation, which is an amazing water efficient technology, and you can get more crop per drop, if you will, by having efficient delivery of water in drought prone and low water semi-arid environments. But so the farmers walked us around their field. They were growing sweet lime and chili in the off season. They were getting much higher prices, so it was supplementing their income where they wouldn't be growing things at all. That was great, all of these things. But as we sat, and we're walking through the fields, getting the specifics of the technology and of the impacts on their income and what they're producing and land scarcity versus water scarcity, the producer was saying they have, and India folks may or may not know, there's a history of subsidized electricity and energy. And so it privatized access to irrigation. And there's also a huge market for developing boreholes and wells. And so they had drilled their own well, but they had to go many more feet down because it kept drying out. And so they would get literally like 10 or 12 minutes of water pumping every 7 to 10 days, right? And they were sharing it among two farmers because this borehole and this pump setup was shared by these two producers on like a half or a third of a hectare of land. They were not cropping their whole thing because they were actually water limited, not land limited. So it seemed like that was a huge discovery and enlightenment point for me. And then, but at the same time, lots of things that a donor wants to hear. We're getting doubling our income. It's great, all the things. But when we sat under the tree with the whole community and took a step back, one of the questions I asked of the community was what they aspired to for their future. But I also asked them to reflect back. Is your life better or worse 5 years from ago, like 5 or 10 years ago versus now? And then thinking that, wow, now they have access to this technology. And then also, of course, we talked about forward leaning, what they wanted in the future. All of them immediately shook their head and said, oh, life was much better in the past. In the past, on the horizon, we saw trees. We had much more greenery. There was water, right? Like, I think as someone who was so project focused, we were rolling out this water efficient technology. But what we had not realized and really thought about is in the community landscape, we are almost exacerbating and accelerating the overconsumption of a really scarce resource. And we subsequently, and in parallel, we were also talking to watershed restoration groups in India. There are many of them, groups that do collective action and look at water harvesting. You can't think of just rolling out water efficiency and water efficient technologies. And there's a whole body of scientific literature. This was 20 years, 15, almost 15, more than 15 years ago that I was sitting in the fields with these farmers. And there's so many more backed up scientific anecdotes, but by science across, dozens of countries around the world showing this, you can't just think that water efficiency is going to drive more ag productivity and better outcomes for the landscapes and the people that live in them. And so this story was really telling for me that we really have to think of the whole systems change approach, think about living within our means and budgeting water in addition to the kinds of technologies we roll out. And then we always have to think about who are the end users and the communities on the ground, and what do they need and want, and how does the new opportunities and interventions we are seeking, how does that interact with what the systems are that make sense for them, and how they will benefit or not from these interventions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Yeah, that's quite enlightening there, to hear some of the stories of those challenges. Just moving on, I want to go to Gordon now. Just trying to find out, okay, so why do you think it's difficult for like communities or regions to address, the relationship between food, water, health, and inclusion? Yeah, based on your experiences.
Yeah. Well, I think it's already been brought up in various ways, but I think there's so many different pressures that communities have that we have to acknowledge and work through them with them if we're trying to help. These are pressures that can be foreseen and not foreseen, if you like. And, climate change is certainly one. Changes in emerging countries, at least where I'm working, you have the wet and dry seasons, which is something I really didn't think about until more recently, because I have always been visiting in the dry seasons. So only recently have I gone to these countries and where I see the impact of weather or just natural weather patterns. Forget having drought in those, but how the seasons themselves can change what food is consumed and what food is available. And water plays a big role in that. In the wet season, where you think water would be readily available, or at least more available than in the dry season, it often is not always a positive. In Africa and Ethiopia, the water is often just run off, not collected, leads to erosion, things like that. In Brazil, where I do work in the Amazon on a One Health project, and I hope we can talk a little bit more about One Health later on and solutions, but I'm working on a One Health project, and I was there in the wet season. And the Amazon River and its tributaries naturally rise about 3 meters, so 9 feet every year in the wet season. So basically the canopies of the trees are, underwater by about 9 feet. And in that time of the year where you would think you've got more water, food would be more available, but it's not. The fish can go hide in the forest. So there's no fisheries during the wet season, or the fishery is a lot less in the wet season. So not only do the people who live there not have necessarily a good protein source for food, they also don't have income, because the fishing industry is one way that they can get income, although exploited. They are now working, and that comes later again when we're talking about solutions. There are more now community associations trying to get a fair price for their products. But the fish hide in the trees. The animals are in the trees. They can't be collected for food. So they rely on less diet diversity in the wet season. So when water would be more available. In the dry seasons, when the rivers retreat, the ponds form, which are full of fish, and the fishing is easy. It's also harder to get to inland resources in wet season. So where you can actually plant your cassava and your fruit crops become less accessible in the wet season, because you can't get there you have to get there by boat through the forest. So there are natural pressures that exist. There are in Ethiopia, unfortunately, because of the civil war, a lot of the good that's been done, as mentioned already by Melissa, a lot of the good could be lost because of advances that were made are now going backwards because of war, and where the economy is going, and where your work previously is being shown to be working and sustainable has now become less sustainable because there's no resources, financial resources, because of other impacts. And as we know, and I was looking up just before this, because I did work in the Tigray region in northern Ethiopia, just water as a weapon of war, right? Withholding water is certainly not something I've worked on, but certainly realize it can be certainly something that can affect the ability of people to be able to have safe water, or water for anything for that matter. So I think, what else was there? Relation. Obviously, water and health is a huge thing, whether it's in food preparation, making sure you have safe food that you're going to eat, because that can be also obviously transmitted to those eating it. And again, those being the most vulnerable, women and children mostly first. So yeah, those are some of the things. I mean, again, hopefully in the question and answer periods, there'll be some specific questions that people have that will be answerable or followed up on. But again, a couple examples that I've noted.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. And Melissa, I'd like to also hear your inputs on that in terms of why it's quite challenging for communities or regions to be able to address issues of food, water, health, and then inclusion. And that inclusion, revolving around especially equity deserving groups.
Yeah, I think the water community and the water sector often gets a short shrift, period, because it's so complex, right? And because it underpins everything, it's by design a resource input to other sectors, whether it's energy sector, water sector. There are water ministers usually are by far the weakest in any kind of government setup. But there's food, right? Like I said, energy, infrastructure, mining, everyone has some designs on water. And like I said, I don't think we have often done a good enough job helping decision makers, the communities themselves, as key in frontline decision makers, let alone the policymakers and private sector who also extract the resource. I don't think we've done a good enough job really helping to understand the value of water ecosystems, freshwater ecosystems, and what and how the resources available for use, but what and how much to make sure we protect and save for the future viability of all the other things we want. So I think as a result, it is by design a unit of currency as input rather than something as precious and saving. And I would say that I see that maybe in some places, but in the conservation community that I'm a part of right now, and I still feel pretty new to it, though I can't say I'm new anymore, I've seen a really amazing rise in acknowledgement and recognition that not all communities have trouble thinking about how to protect their water resources. Actually, the frontline indigenous communities in the Amazon, here at home in the US, my WWF Canadian colleagues are partnering with First Nations in Canada on some of the most pristine systems left in the world, let alone in your backyard here, there in Canada, are held by Indigenous and local communities who have spiritual connections, cultural connections, and value it intrinsically, let alone for the economic and livelihood purposes for salmon or for other things that they use those resources for. There is a real cultural, spiritual connection that they value, and so as a result, where they've been given and granted rights and resources to maintain those resources, they have done an amazing job. And there's also a considerable body of evidence showing that the last remaining stewards of the world's biodiversity, let alone freshwater biodiversity, are really held in Indigenous lands and Indigenous peoples. So I think I want to maybe frame that question a little differently and say that it is complicated, but many communities are able to do it and showing how they can do it. And what I think we need to get our heads around is how to adequately value it from political structures, especially because water is transboundary and cross-sectorial, and really understand the intrinsic value for nature and people first before we then think about divvying up the water resource chits, if you will, for all the other things we want to achieve, food, energy, etc.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for highlighting on that and on the conservation aspect and things that we need to also happen in that regard. Thank you. And just also ask one more question with to Gordon as well. What are some solutions that can be adopted to achieve sustainable and resilient food security? And so from what you have also said, I mean, part of what you have been saying so far, it's just to buttress more on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I love talking about solutions. This is more where I'd like to focus, at least with the ideas. They don't always work, but working as a group, working in a network situation, working with the communities is ways in which we can actually find solutions. And I like what Melissa said. A lot of communities are also finding their own solutions, and and that's really an encouraging sign. So I mean, again, from a food security perspective and women and girls, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do, and I mean, these are, sort of words you hear all the time, but if we can actually get them solutions to them, I think it's important, and that's capacity building, women and girl empowerment. I think those are key to the success when it comes to food security. I mean, we all know that the women are the ones that do the food work, if you like. Maybe don't control the food, but hopefully working with the males and the men in the communities. So you cannot exclude anyone from the discussion as one thing. Obviously, you focus on capacity building, and that starts, I guess, maybe going back to how I actually got into international work. We were invited by Hawassa University in Ethiopia to establish a food and nutrition program at the university in the College of Agriculture. And we said, yeah, we'd help. But one thing is that we want gender equality in the students taken in this master's program. So that was a key for us being involved. And I have to say, it was hard because those in the advanced degrees were all males. They were all men. And for this was quite innovative. And I don't know if we ever got to 50%. We might have in a few years. And we did it for about 10 years, but we did definitely get to 40% of the class being female. And to see their successes afterwards, working in NGOs, working in government, working in research, becoming professors and lecturers was sort of kind of a feel-good story. And the fact that they were doing nutrition, which was actually in Ethiopia not an advanced degree option. So we were getting nurses, food scientists taking the public health workers getting this master's degree in human nutrition. And this then translates obviously into the field work, into further education, bachelor's programs and things like that. So I see that as a kind of an example of capacity building that's been successful. Other things in education can be shorter term certificates like healthcare workers, extension workers in agriculture with some background in nutrition. And we did a lot of, for our sustainability goals, we did a lot of messaging, using farm radio, using other techniques, just getting some specific messages out. And going back to Ethiopia after 7 years and visiting a town where I had done work previously, it was nice. I actually asked the community health worker, what do they tell their community about pulses? So the product what we were trying to get the women to keep and eat. And although the community still seemed poor and need certainly other help, the health community worker did say that they acknowledge the importance of it, and they work with the women to ensure that some of the pulses that they grow are kept for human consumption. So I think impact is something important, but you have to work with the communities and have them have successes with the messaging to see it work and work well. Obviously, community engagement, ownership, taking ownership of the activities is also very important. So you have your women leaders, model farmers, these kinds of individuals that take ownership and are proud of the crops they grow and the successes they have in their communities themselves is certainly positive. Other things that seem to work well, and again, I'm all about diet diversity. Intake is one thing. So having enough food is one thing, but also having quality of food. So a mixture of food has to be something emphasized. And I think that's what's being lost as emerging countries go more into a westernized diet. Even the poorer people, even the poor will go more to a westernized diet if they can. They lose their traditional diet diversity that made them successful as a population for thousands and thousands of years. So bringing back and their traditional diets and traditional foods is a really important thing. And having them understand the importance and the healthiness of those diets are really important. And again, water plays a significant role in that diet diversity, if you like. Other things that we've seen work are obviously more, and this is a good example of in the Amazon in Brazil, are co-ops or associations where riverside communities, which are very small, they tend to be from 10 homes or households to maybe 45 households. And in my visits to these communities, some can be very successful and others aren't so successful. And those that are more successful have been working with other riverside communities on the water to ensure that they've got a fishing industry where they can sell their fish at fair value, that they can sell their fruits that they grow at fair value. So associations, co-ops all work very well. And they also then help with resources. Instead of one farmer or one person using up all their resources to grow one thing, whether it's a crop or an animal, if you're in a co-op, your resources are put together. And that's a helpful thing. And we've seen this in both Ethiopia, where we visited a poultry or chicken co-op, and then in Ghana, where we actually, there was a chicken co-op run by women, and very successfully bringing this co-op mentality and experiences to other communities, smaller communities, to set up their own farming traits. And again, women-led, so very nice to see that. So I think I can stop there.
Okay, all right, thank you. I really like the part of advocating for gender equality, especially for the master's program that you highlighted in terms of capacity building, because we see such shortfalls in other programs, even in the Western world, and even in some fields. So that's I think that's really
just to that, and that had to be a demand. Like, we demanded that. That was not something negotiable, because that is at a higher level. That is at an education level, at a university level. Obviously, tactics at a community level would be much different. But, you know, if you want us to help you, this is what you have to give us. We'll give you the time, we'll give you the expertise, but you have to give us this. You have to give us female students.
Okay, perfect. All right, Melissa, let's hear your own inputs about some of the solutions, things that ways forward to just achieve sustainable and resilient food security.
Yeah, and I have sort of two different buckets of answers for this, because of the way this discussion is going. And so maybe the first one, the first set of buckets, to build off of Gordon's remarks, and on some examples of really making sure that women are included in the discussion and the design of programs, and are really the target of the impact of some of these programs. I think experience that I had when I was at the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is one of the two U.S. government bilateral aid agencies. I was there at the time that the hunger and nutrition program was being stood up, Feed the Future, under President Obama at that time, and then really championed by, at the time, Secretary Clinton, who was Secretary of State. And in the formation of that, a really huge set of innovations that was done with experts outside of AID, but our own M&E experts. And I witnessed these discussions, and over a several-year process, that our team stood up the Women's Empowerment and Agriculture Index, the WEA, which really, with the premise and the idea that you first have to collect quality data that is gender disaggregated. So you have to, before you can say what we need to do, we need just to know who are the people in the communities we're trying to serve, who are the producers. We make a lot of assumptions and wax eloquently that more than half of the producers in the world are women, et cetera. But we really want to have more clarity and specificity. And the first thing is we need to collect data. You can't see what you can't measure. A lot of Feed the Future was about impact, 30% reduction in poverty, 30% improved nutrition outcomes for children, and reduced child stunting under 5. So a lot of this was about metrics in general, but then this idea that we really needed to collect data gender disaggregated. And then this WEA tool, which is still in use today and has been picked up by others, or in the ag sector, where different categories of how do you measure empowerment and sort of control of assets, what is their role and access to training, what, who does the production. So there's a series of questions in a survey. So in order for you to better understand the gender dynamics in the communities you're doing before you design a project. The other thing, so happy to share, and you can also just Google and find a lot of the resource and reports and then groups using it. And there's tons of now data out there. We have baseline data in different country contexts. The other thing I'll just note is a real innovation. So one, collecting good data, gender disaggregated. The other one, I'd say nutrition sensitive agriculture was really a thing back. This is, Feed the Future 2008. And then, 15 years ago plus. And it was like the idea that, wow, we care about livelihoods and poverty alleviation. There's SDG 1 and 2, but and there's some assumptions made that when you got more money, producers would all of a sudden have better outcomes on health. But if we really cared about health, what we started studying and noticing is that you do not necessarily get the nutrition outcomes in the household or community that you wanted. And why is that? Well, we did a lot of studies and worked on nutrition sensitive agricultural, more specifically designed. You need to engage most of those pathways to achieve nutrition outcomes through agriculture had to be more intentional and needed to include women. If women don't control assets, if women are not engaged, and if men and women are not engaged, then you don't get necessarily it translated to better food and dietary diversity, all the things that Gordon was talking about in the household level. So really being more thoughtful in the design and thinking about the impacts and then how and what you need to design, and obviously engaging women in the process, that is pretty key. So I think that was another, and the getting impacts not just on livelihoods but on nutrition, when we added that in Feed the Future, became a really important one. So let me stop there. I have a bunch of others on what in the world we need to do around water. But let me pause. I put some resources in the chat for both freshwater, river systems, and what we need to do to conserve and protect those, underpinning food security and community well-being and WASH, but also on groundwater. But happy to take questions later. I see Stacy online.
All right, thank you, Melissa. I need to pass it over to Stacy because of our time for other questions. Thank you.
Most definitely. Oh, there we go. I thought I was frozen there for a second. Thank you all, like Eunice, Gordon, Melissa. This conversation has been phenomenal today. I've learned a ton of stuff, and I've been in the water world for, I don't want to admit how long I've been in here, but it's been a long while. So I've learned a lot from you today. So thank you. I know we are just past 1:30 today, so I don't want to carry things through too far. Aster has submitted a few questions to the chat. So hopefully, Aster, if you're here still, if you can stay on afterwards, we can try and address some of those questions here in a bit more of a intimate setting. So I just want to be a little bit cognizant of time for our support here today. So with that, I guess I still want to thank everybody for coming in, and you guys, you speakers, for a really fantastic discussion. We really appreciate your time and your willingness to share your expertise with us and with all of the attendees today. And to everybody who came today, we really appreciate your time as well. The Women Plus Water community, it continues to grow, and it's been impactful because of all of you and all of your participation. Our next Women Plus Water conversation is going to be coming up in just over a month on March 14th. And this one will be in honor of World Water Day, which is on March 22nd. So this topic for our next Women Plus Water conversation will be on leveraging water for peace. And if you haven't already done so, please register on the Women Plus Water website. I think it'll also be in the chat if you need to just quickly check there before you leave. And of course, we really want to thank everybody that works behind the scenes on this Women Plus Water community. And that includes, of course, Dr. Corin Schuster-Wallace, Jessie Widow, Tara Hackle, and Chandra Rajulapati. And of course, our sponsors, we thank them as well, which is the Global Institute for Water Security and the College of Arts and Science, which is both at the University of Saskatchewan, and the Global Water Futures Observatories. So thank you all for today, and we look forward to seeing you next month.